Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the live. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke about developing culture. And then this week, there was an online forum talking about 5 strategies to address the nursing shortage. And there were some pearls that this very well versed and experienced DON came up with. So I thought that today I was going to continue on the different chapters, maybe chapter 2 of my course, Skill Build. But I thought maybe I could do a segue, or I don't want to say an encore, but a continuation of what she was talking about in terms of how we address the nursing shortage. And if you've been watching me, I talk about the disconnect that we feel that is going on in our facilities. So I'm all about creating culture. So I'm calling myself the soft skill guru. And one of my focus, in addition to training supervisors and managers, is going to be nurture your culture. I'm telling you, if you don't pay attention to culture, you're going to continue losing your staff. And you can do sign on bonuses, retention bonuses, and all of these things are excellent. But it takes a lot of work and innovation and intention and attention to create a culture and maintain that culture so your people can feel connected and they don't have that disconnect. It's a long term project. Well, if you're new here, my name is Maggie Lazar. I am an advanced practice registered nurse. I have been working in long term care since the 1990s. I was in home care and own a home health company. I was the director of nursing a home care company, and I've worked in long term care. And my last job was in providing psychiatric services in long term care. So I am vested and I have seen what is going on. And of course, with COVID, we have like had an explosion of all the issues that have been going on now coming up to the surface. So today, I only want to talk for about 30 minutes. I have been really working a lot around my house, decluttering and downsizing. So, so I meant to do some slides today, but I don't have any slides. But what I can do is once I do slides that address this topic, then I will post them on a nurse training and advocacy on the YouTube channel. Hi everybody, whoever joined. But anyway, today we want to talk about as a part 2 of creating culture. If you missed that topic, I have posted that presentation on the YouTube channel, a nurse training and advocacy. We talked about why you need culture, what culture is. So some of the things that the speakers spoke about during that training this week about how do we uh, attack this nursing shortage. They did things about like communicate with your team. And I remember when I was working in long-term care that, you could be, a nurse could be down the hall and then a family member calls and that nurse has to lock the cart and walk all the way down there, answer that phone call, and then come back. That's wasted time. So they came up with this portable phones, but then it was like they were being called all the time, a lot of interruptions. So one of the other things they talked about is find ways to eliminate waste and so that the nurses can focus on what they need to focus, because that is a big job dissatisfier when somebody is so interrupted. Those med passes take a long time. So sometimes you feel like your whole shift is just trying to push meds. And you'd have treatments, you have family members calling, you have to follow up on your patients, and you so focus on those med pass. I used to say, don't focus so much, but at the same time, I know when I get on the cart how long it takes me because I'm not used, I don't do this every day. So find ways to eliminate, time wasters. Some facilities are using a paging system or a messenger system to kind of send you text messages. That might work because that way you could do it when you have a little bit of time, right? They talked about hiring, go to find those candidates where they're at. It's not just, it doesn't matter, it's not sufficient for you to advertise only on Indeed. You need to kind of post your jobs on in laundromats, in grocery stores, in at the gym, and places where those candidates are, and also the nursing schools. Like, I'm teaching at a nursing school now, and my students are not going to graduate till next year. They've already putting applications, and they already have their eye on where they're going to recruit. So if you wait till nursing 5 when they're doing their GN or interning at your place, somebody already grabbed them, right? And the other thing that they talked about was, when somebody puts an application, you need to streamline the process. Sometimes you put an application and it's a week or two before somebody gets back to you. You sleep, you lose. Somebody else going to snatch that nurse right from under you. Anyway, this talk is not about how to, well, it could be part of how we address the nursing shortage, but I'm sticking to culture. Remember, culture is a set of values that identifies your organization as to, this is how we do things here. In this facility, we are known for this. So I posed a question. If somebody were to ask you, what is special about your facility today? Would you be able to verbalize that? Is there anything specific about your place, or is it just another facility? That means you don't have culture. Culture is not a mission statement that is stuck on a board somewhere in the ED's office. That is not what culture is. Culture is something that permeates all departments, and every time you get together, we talk about it. All your communications talk about it. All your emails talk about it. It's reinforced, not verbally, but also you live it out every single day. So if somebody says, part of our culture is a culture of equity, right? Equity means we're treating everybody the same. But then you have cliques, and staff are not being mentored or reprimanded. I don't like that word. But if there's something that is not kosher, they're not being addressed the same way. They are favorites depending on who's in this little clique, that little clique. So you don't have equity, right? So when you say, for example, in our facility, we are known for being, um, we support, we encourage responsibility, we encourage respect, we live out accountability, we live out excellence in health in care delivery. You have to put your mouth where your money is. You got, well, actually the other way. Put your money where your mouth is, but culture necessarily does not mean you need to spend a lot of money. You just need to hone it in. You just need to let people know, and they need to know you mean business. Okay. And in that presentation, I did a sample of a facility, and we talked about what the mission statement was, what the vision statement was, which is more global and long term, and then you're going to have what your benchmark, what are those building points of that culture. Okay. So today I want to say there are a few little things. Let's say you said your culture was, you are you are supporting a culture of equity, teamwork, and accountability. Teamwork, I think, should be part of every facility's culture statement, right? Because what people are saying, and again, I'm not making this up, I am responding to what I hear, all the chatter I hear online. People, Dio Wayne the other day were talking about how they treated, just coming from vacation and being told, you either do this or you resign, and it was like, there is no what happened. There's no your statement. There is no how can we remediate this. You don't treat people like that, right? So that DON could attract two or three nurses and some CNAs. But the fact that you're treating them like that, you've lost a cheerleader, right? So you have got to have your stuff in order, your policies, and then you have to enforce your policies equitably. That's equity. Teamwork, meaning we are in this together. We are a team. And that's why I used to always tell the staff when they say, well, that's not my room, the light, it doesn't have to be your room. If a patient needs something, you go in there and you address it. Even if you have to go get the employee, but to just pass by, you walk by, two or three lights and you don't even stop. That is not cool, right? And if somebody, let's say, had an emergency, your nurse having an emergency, and you're like, oh, it's time for my lunch, and you just walk out, where like somebody's just frazzled and trying to juggle so many balls, that is not teamwork. So if you are a manager and they see you jump in there and assisting that nurse, then you are living out that culture. That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be just words. It should be something you live out every day. And I think if in a facility you have teamwork, it's going to be a little easier when you're really short. Another thing they talked about during that presentation is if you're asking people to do extra, it's a lot easier to ask a staff member to stay an extra 4 hours, ask multiple people, than saying, I need you to come and do a 12-hour extra, right? So just kind of make sure whatever you're doing is doable and it's humane, right? The staff members are feeling like they're just a machine, you just saying, and you're making voluntary overtime. I don't know what that means, because if my time off and I have plans, I'm going to go. And if for you to shame me and to guilt me into saying, well, you don't care about the facility because we're short, well, this is why people are quitting. They're burnt out. You cannot treat people like machine. So what I thought we could do is talk about, in addition to living out the culture, emulating the culture, um, displaying all those qualities that you're trying to instill into your staff: equity, kindness, responsibility, teamwork, excellence. All these things can be part of your culture definition. There are some tangible things you could do. For example, one of my pet peeves, I was talking to the students about that this past week, is mouth care in long-term care. I can tell you how many times I have fussed and fussed when I go see a patient, and the state of this person's mouth is just gross, and it just breaks my heart, because this is a human being who was a professor, an engineer, a doctor, a nurse. Granted, our CNAs are overworked just like the nurses, but the mouth is one of the first things that somebody sees when they're talking to you. And your state of health and cleanliness is reflected, right, in those teeth and your mouth and what's happening. We were doing head and neck this week, so that's why the mouth was very prevalent in my talk. So I used to tell the CNAs, I said, make sure you put the water or the drink at the bedside, and every time you enter the room, offer it. Dehydration is so prevalent. If you treated dehydration, then the mouth issue is going to be lessened, and you're going to have less people returning to the hospital. So if I were an administrator and I was looking at my budget, you don't have to have so many CNAs, doing this, doing that. You can reorganize the way you provide care. As long as these patients, these residents are taken care of, it shouldn't matter how you assign, right? So you need to have people come together and say, let's think out of the box about how can we make this work. I propose that you designate a hydration CNA. That's number one. Hydration CNA, there was one facility I worked at, they had a beautiful hydration card. Sometimes it wasn't clean. And we were supposed to have a list of everybody's diet and restrictions, whoever's on thick and liquid or shouldn't have liquids. I can tell you how many times there was nothing on there. So it was standing there like a beautiful decoration, and to let people think that hydration was a priority, but it wasn't. It wasn't. So I used to say, well, I know this person is on food restriction. Where is the list? See, you're not living out. You putting it out there, but it's for show. It's for show. So have a hydration CNA whose job is mouth care and make sure people are getting their fluids in, right? And with that, that person would work closely with dietary or your dietitian just to make sure every single day you're printing out a list of the resident with restrictions. Listen, if I were to do a research study after 3 months of consistently having somebody looking at this one little aspect of care delivery, I promise you, you would see a change. I promise you, you would see your patients doing well. Your return to hospitalization would decrease. Your patient's mental status would increase. Your wounds would increase, would improve. You need to pay attention. It's a simple thing, but people are going to say, "Oh, but who's going to get these people out of bed? I don't. I need the CNA to do that." Well, yeah. Let's wait. Number two. How about number two? You have a team that is responsible for getting people out of bed, right? Why don't you pair, let's say between seven, well, no, they're eating at eight. Let's say between 8 and 10, you have a lifting team. I called it Let's Move Stars, right? That's the team. You can have a CNA, you can have a restorative person, and why not a therapy person, right? Because they are the expert, and to attack those really difficult patients to get out. That way, that team is well versed in using the Hoyer, because the Hoyer scares the out of some people, and you don't need to kind of go chase somebody down to get two people to get someone out of bed. You have a team that way, because how many times do you come to work at 7 and by 8:30 therapy is breathing down the CNA's neck? We need to get this person out of bed. We need to get them dressed to go to therapy. Have a team, and their job is going to be not everybody, but the most challenging cases, because those are the people that you want to improve, right? Those are your people on the bariatric beds. You want them to get out, because the more, of course, I don't have to preach to the choir, they need to get up so they can do better. So that's number two. Number one, again, a hydration CNA. Number two, you want to have less move stars. You want to have a what do they call it? A moving team, right? But I think number one, I would really love to see somebody consider someone in that facility who's responsible for maintaining the integrity of that culture. I call that person the happy guardian. She is the guardian of the galaxy. She is the guardian, the person who's going to be responsible for reinforcing those values every day. And she's a happy guardian, which means she's going to be going around interacting with those residents. There was another facility where they were supposed to, in the morning, go and go into certain rooms and ask them how they were doing, but it was sporadic. It was not something that was consistent. So if you hire someone like that, of course you're going to have a backup. Let's say that person is off or whatever. But just being committed to having someone who's going to infuse your facility with this happiness, right? So people's birthdays, resident birthdays, shouldn't be ignored. Again, facilities, one day I would go in there and somebody would have a balloon attached to their wheelchair, and I'm like, oh my God, it's your birthday. Happy birthday. I start singing for them. And then the next week, somebody said, well, today's my birthday, and I don't see any balloon. I get so irritated. We start a bunch of things, but we don't follow through. Again, if you're talking about equity, if you're going to do it for Mrs. Smith here, you have to do it for Mr. Jones. You cannot do it for Mrs. Smith. Then they're going to look at you and say, you're a fake. What you're saying is just words. So the happy guardian is going to interact with your resident, going to bring lots of smiles, going to make sure their birthdays are celebrated. She is not the activities person, but she would work closely with activities, putting things together that are in line. Again, remember, don't veer, don't go here and there and trying to think of all kind of things. It takes consistency. You have to stick to the culture. If you want to, what's the word I'm looking for? If you want to build, you want that to develop, and you want those residents and staff. I remember one weekend we had somebody's birthday, and then there was a Mexican ranch, whatever they call him, the guy with the big hats, and he came and he sang. Oh, that was so much fun. Everybody loved it. But that was one time. I haven't seen it again, right? So I think those kind of things should be planned, and they need to be implemented on a regular basis. Patients, families, they start to expect it. Let me tell you, you're going to change the temperature inside your facility. So your happy guardian is going to be responsible for posting all those building blocks of your culture everywhere, right? And she's going to emulate that for the residents. She's going to emulate that for the staff. She's going to be responsible for making sure that staff birthdays they get a card, or they get a gift card or something. People want to feel connected. Okay, so if I do a presentation at a facility, I will go into more detail as to what that happy guardian. Again, this is to guard your culture, to help you cement that inside your facility. That is not just word. You don't forget it. You would take that person would take every opportunity to broadcast this when they're having a meeting with a family member. They would say, oh, these are the building blocks of our culture. We're very, very intentional and serious about living these out every day. And then let me tell you, that family member is going to expect when they come to visit that some way, somehow, someone is living out those values. Don't be a fake. Okay, and think about it. That is, I don't think that's going to cost you a lot of money, because it's going to decrease your um, resident complaints, right? Your residents are going to be happier. It's going to help with recruitment. Once somebody comes and they leave, they're going to tell their friends. They're going to say, oh my God, that place is amazing, blah, blah, blah. Word of mouth. This is the best marketing tool. So you can decrease your budget. You're going to have repeat residents. You're going to have repeat clients. You're going to have free referral sources. Oh my God. We just are so concerned with the day to day, not that it's not important. Trust me. I understand. I ran a business. Remember, I ran a couple of businesses. So I know you have to put your nose to the ground and get it done. But you can't ignore the broader picture. You can't. And this is why when an executive director is asking a DON, why are these nurses leaving? What's going on? You out of touch. You should be touching your staff. You should be talking to them. So if I were to go in a facility, I would do like little ad hoc committees. Take two or three people and sit down with them and say, what's going on? How do you feel? What suggestion do you have? How can we make this work? And they will tell you it's not just higher salaries, what's important. It's not just good benefits, that's important. It's not just those bonuses, that's important. People, nurses typically are looking for more connection. They're looking to be validated. They're looking to be cared for emotionally. They're looking for somebody to say, I got you. I got your back. And it's not just the fellow nurse. It should permeate through housekeeping, how they're interacting with the nursing staff. It should permeate through therapy department, even though they're not direct employees. But if somebody is inside your facility, whether they're hired or contracted, they need to know what your culture is. What is the culture of this organization? So those are the three things that I came up with in a hurry because I didn't have a chance to do your PowerPoints. But think about it. You want to hire Hydration Cna. This one is pretty um, more in line with the what's the word I'm looking for? With the clinical aspect of what you do in your facility. Because like I say, if you hydrate your patient, mouth difficulties is going to be lessened. They're going to be happier. They're going to be more hydrated. You're going to have less complications and less rehospitalization. Yes, I said it. And if any facility, I dare you to initiate that, and let me talk to you in 3 months. I have to be consistent now. I'm not saying you're going to start saying, oh, let's do it for a week or two and see if it works. Just like culture, it's a long range process. You don't expect everything to happen in a week or two. No, Rome wasn't built in 2 days. Okay? So think about it. And again, I think your happy guardian would be kind of slash your event coordinator. Don't ignore anything. Yes, we celebrate Nurses Week. Yes, we celebrate CNA Week. But what about the rest of the year? What about the rest of the year? How do they feel appreciated? Do they get a thank you? Do they get a surprise card? Do they get a public validation of something that they did, recognition? Hmm? Do they feel valued? Do they feel like you appreciate them? Do your nurses and CNAs work well together? I have another presentation about, nurturing CNA nurse relationship because we are a team. So teamwork should be one of the tenets of your culture, that we are all going to work together. We are in this together. And I used to tell my staff that all the time. There is no, that's my job, that's your job. I unplug toilets, I mop floors, I went and picked up food for patient, I drove out and got cigarette for somebody who was just losing it over a cigarette. You do what you need to do to keep the patient safe and to keep the peace within the facility. This is the kind of facility I would want to send my family to. And right now, I'm thinking as I'm aging, there is no facility that I see out there that I would want to be in. Not one. Not one. Nobody really wants to volunteer to go in a facility. It's a reluctant decision, it's a last minute decision. It's like the end of the line. So our job is to try to make it as pleasant as we can. We are losing our staff. The amount of disrespect is mind-boggling for somebody to, don't. And then one other thing we said too in culture is hire responsibly. Don't just grab anybody who walks through the door just because they say they're NHA or they've done DON for 10 years. You need to dig deeper. Do they match your culture? Would this person fit within the framework of your culture? Not everybody belongs anywhere. We all have our little spot. Some people, you don't want them in your facilities. And it's not just because they're rude or lazy, it goes beyond that. The soft skill that I talk about in my class, those are things that you really can't teach someone. Some of the stuff you can't teach someone. For example, I can teach you to be kind. I can't teach you to love people. I can teach you to be organized. I can teach you to prioritize. But those basic, simple human qualities, I can't. The ship has sailed. It's too late for you. All right. So I said I'm only going to talk for 30 minutes today, and it's 6:30 as we're talking about. I hope you enjoy this. I get passionate about these topics because I see it every single day. I'm teaching nurses, new nurses, and sometimes it's really hard for me not to let the current situation cloud what I'm trying to impart to these young, idealistic, kids. To me, they're kids. They all could be my children or grandchildren. But because I'm still passionate about nursing, I'm able to say, this is what you need to do. This is who you need to be in order for you to thrive in this profession. You have to peel the layers and understand that real deep down, there's a human being who needs your attention and your care. You need to self care. You need to care for yourself. You need to be assertive and advocate for yourself and not let a job, a manager, supervisor, DON bully you, right? Because there are bullies out there, you know. And if it doesn't work, you've tried, you've talked to, move on, because there's so many different opportunities. And I think it is so sad. And the lady in that program this week, she says, oh, a lot of nurses had left to go into things like real estate and online jobs, but they're all coming back. Well, not all, some, because at the core, most of us nurses, it's not just a job, it's a calling. You've heard that before. It's a calling. So we put up with a lot. When a nurse decides to leave, it's because she sees no way out. Nobody's paying attention. You're not talking to them. You're not feeling the pulse of what is going on. And these are such simple things. Okay? So if you need me to come and give you some direction on how to do that, I'm open. I'm working 1 day a week. But we have got to do a better job. They talk about like 98,000 student nurses applied, but like it's been happening for decades now. They don't have enough faculty, people like me to teach, right? So what are we going to do? People like me are retiring. I've retired. So who's going to replace me? Who's going to replace you? Who's going to take care of me when I need help? Even though I'm trying not to go into any of those facilities, like I say, this is my plan. My plan is not to enter into any of those places because I know me, I wouldn't last long. Anyway, to recap again, hire a Hydration CNA, have moving and lifting team or stars, and have a happy guardian to develop, maintain, and nurture your culture, which is my tagline. You have to nurture your culture. Do you have a culture? Do you have culture in your facility? Go find out. Answer for yourself. If you're a nurse, go ask your DON, what is the culture of this facility? Where is it written? Where is it documented? How do I find out what the culture is? Or they say, oh, everybody, the nurses eat their young, or whoever is sleeping with so and so. Management doesn't care. You don't have culture. Well, you do have culture, but it's a sick and toxic culture, and people do not stay in toxic cultures unless they're the one doing the toxicity, right? There are some employees that we call them toxic employees. But anyway, all right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Nurse Training and Advocacy, thank you for listening. I'm Maggie. I will see you next week. Bye.